Hello, I'm Malcolm Cox, and today we have another Tuesday teaching tip for you. This one is called A Note About Quotes. Now, quotations can be tremendously helpful in a lesson. We're teaching, we're preaching, and we need to get a point across. We want to summarize something, we want to clarify something, and a quotation from some other source can be very, very helpful. However, they do need to be used well, and we have some tips today as to how to do that. Jesus himself was someone who used quotes. In Matthew chapter 4, he's in the wilderness. The devil is tempting him, and he says, "Man shall not live on bread alone." He quotes from Deuteronomy right there. Now, of course, it's interesting that in the same passage, the devil himself uses quotations from the Old Testament to try and trick Jesus into behavior that would not be right. And so we see that even in this little illustration, just having quotations is not useful. Many a lesson has been made worse by the use of quotations instead of better. So how do we make sure we get the right balance of these things and use them appropriately? We're going to talk about that today. But even Jesus was not the only one to use quotes. The Apostle Paul in Acts chapter 27, he's in Athens, and he says to his hearers there, "For in him we live and move and have our being, as some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring." And in that sermon, he uses quotes from two different sources, from the Cretan philosopher Epimenides and from the Sicilian Stoic philosopher Aratus or Aratus. And he uses those quotes because he knows that his audience will connect with them and that he will gain credibility by using them. And so we can become more and more skilled at using quotations, and it can be tremendously helpful. What are some things to bear in mind to help us to be effective? Well, here's a few thoughts. Firstly, don't use them as a substitute for yourself thinking deeply about the point. We can use quotes simply because they feel good, sound good to us. We like the sound of them and they kind of connect with the topic, but they don't actually achieve anything. They just make us feel better. That's just laziness. As A. Milne said, to give you a quote, in The Record Lie, "A quotation is a handy thing to have about, saving one the trouble of thinking for oneself. Always a laborious business." Yes, thinking for ourselves is laborious business, but just slapping a quote on top of a point is lazy unless we know it actually clarifies, enhances what we're trying to say. So let's not use them for the wrong reason. Second thing, where possible, put your quote on screen or on a handout, if you've got handouts, as well as reading it. Some people are visual learners, and once we go into what we're reading, our head is in the book or in the piece of paper we have, our visual leaders have begun to lose connection with us. Our auditory learners our visual learners will have lost connection with us. Our auditory learners, they'll stay with us as we read, but the visual learners will have lost us a bit. So it's helpful to put the quote on screen as well. And connected with this, make the quote short, as short as you can without it losing its meaning. I was listening to someone speak not too long ago who quoted 3 pages from a book, read page 1, page 2, and then page 3. And he'd not only lost me, but he'd lost most of the people in the room after about the second or third sentence. The quote he was giving us was relevant to his topic and was actually quite deep and interesting, but we just lost him because it was too long. Unless you're a trained actor and you could sort of read it in a very dynamic way, which most of us are not trained in that way, maybe you can get away with it then, but otherwise give us one sentence to at most a paragraph. And I would say this, if you're going to give us a paragraph, tell us you're giving us a paragraph. I'm going to read something now. It's a bit longer than normal, so stay with me because I think you'll find it's valuable. It's 1 paragraph long. Then I know where we're going and it helps me to follow along and stay connected with what you're saying. Otherwise, a few words, 1 line, 1 sentence, I think is the best length for most of our quotations and most of our lessons. So that's another thought. Another thought would be this. Try and keep it to where the words are self-explanatory. They don't need further explanation. They're not multisyllabic, technical, scientific, or theological language that you'd have to explain. Not everybody has an in-depth knowledge of the English language, and if we have to explain our quote, which is meant to be illustrating something we've just said, we're going a long way away from our actual point. Here's the point, here's the quote to help us understand that point. But if I have to then explain that, we're going too far away. So use simple language, especially bearing in mind that many people who listen to us, English is not their first language. I would say short quotes, simple language as much as possible. That will help everybody. Attribute the source, if you say what book it's from or the name of the person who wrote the quote, that helps. If you don't know, that's okay, but at least say, not sure who first said this, but, and all those things can be very helpful. Perhaps you've got some other thoughts of your own. What do you think is the most valuable way in which we can make sure we use quotes wisely and effectively? How have you heard quotes used well? Give us some of your tips, we'd love to know. Finally, one more quote for you. Joseph Roux said this: "A quotation is a diamond in the hand of a man of wit, and a pebble in the hand of a fool." Let's be men and women of wit rather than men and women of folly. Let's make sure our quotes really are diamonds and not mere pebbles. I hope this has been helpful. You can leave me a message. mccx@mac.com is my email address, or you can leave a message anywhere you hear or see this recording. So until the next time, I hope you have a wonderful day, and God bless.